TB, how you doing, man?
Hey, you know what? That's what everybody calls me. TB if they feel uncomfortable.
That's what I said. I'm not uncomfortable. I'm good.
That's what's up. So I got to ask you, Waves. A lot of people are seeing the trailer, but they're not really necessarily understanding what the movie is about.
Yeah.
Can you kind of say why people should come see this film?
First of all, anytime people see a trailer and they know everything that's happening in the movie, ain't no point in going to see the movie because you already know what's popping. I think the movie is
And if you want the exclusive, you want the tall boy, because he's going to bring you the exclusive.
It's a beautiful family drama about an African-American family in South Florida trying to navigate, relationships and tragedy and just, I play a character just coming of age at the time, and it's just fun. It's really a movie of our time.
I play the younger sister in the family, and I think it's like a beautiful portrait of a upper class African American family. You don't really get to see families like this in the independent film world, portrayed so gracefully and messily and authentically, and I think just for that it's a good movie to come see, and also the profound message of healing is so huge and important at the time that we're in right now, so I encourage people to go see it.
It's a family drama, African-American family that is struggling to keep themselves together. There's a major tragedy that happens in the course of the film that sort of rocks the family to its core, and it's about them sort of enduring that tragedy and trying to pick up the pieces and find a way to move forward.
How do you feel about the fact that so many people have come to see you, or they want to watch a movie because of you?
Flattered. For a long time, Brown was just looking for crumbs from the table of joy, bruh. You know what I'm saying? Like, please, can I have some more, sir? And to be in a place where I can help open a movie, where my name and my talent can garner people will come to see that, I'm flattered, bruh. I think the story is powerful, and I'm happy to lend my voice, my face to this story.
Some research on Waves, and a writer said Waves did the thing that I want from movies: shock, envelope, break down, and rebuild me. Such movies rarely happen. Can you talk about that?
I mean, that honestly was like the big goal with this, and I think there's an unorthodox structure, because there's a pivotal event and then a kind of baton pass that happens in the movie, and I think looking at the movie kind of broadly, I almost wanted it to feel like a panic attack seizing in on you, and then you have that panic attack, and then hopefully the movie gives you a hug, and then you figure out how that came to be and sort things out and get to the other side of it, if that makes sense. And I think life works that way, in grief, and myself and my loved ones, I've been through some rough patches, but a lot of times when you're in that patch, in that rough phase, that's all you can see and that's all you feel. But a lot of times you can get through that, and you heal to the other side. So I hope the movie feels like that.
Let's start with the title, Waves. Yeah. And what is Waves? I mean, Waves means something to me because I can see the ripples that took place. But talk to us from your perspective.
Sure. For me, it really starts with thematic, and get into the kind of soul of the movie. I think the movie for me is about, it's about a lot of things, and I hope different people take different things. But a big part is the highs and lows of life, and the highs and lows of love, and the highs and lows of family. And I think once you go through those, going through the highs is easy. Going through the lows and coming on the other side is a lot harder. But I think life is even more rewarding when you do, that's kind of what the movie is, and I think like waves, it kind of ebbs and flows like waves, and with the music and everything else, but that's more for me what it means.
Tell us, how did you connect as the writer and the director to this black family?
Well, the movie's deeply, deeply personal. It's been brewing for a very long time, and I had to live a lot of life to get on the other side of some things. And a lot of it's autobiographical to myself and my loved ones' experiences. But the big part of that is I'm a white dude talking right now.
Get out of here.
Believe it or not. Yeah, you're right. I never would have done it. So, Race, and the reason this is a black family really is because of Kelvin, who I'm sitting right here next to, my brother. Incredible human being. He's one of the most talented human beings I know, and I met him on my last movie, and we loved each other, and we wanted to work together again. And at that point, I was kind of dreaming of making this movie, but it was shape-shifting. I didn't know exactly what it was. I mean, I did know what it was, but it wasn't a thing yet, I guess. It wasn't a script, and it had been brewing for a really long time. So I was telling him about it, and then he was gravitating towards Ty. At that point, he wasn't even a character's name. He was the brother in the story. And when I started writing, we were texting a lot, talking about his past, talking about my past, finding commonality there, I think. And I sent him the first draft probably 8 months, I think, before we started shooting, and it just grew from there, and the collaboration kept growing, and we really felt a lot of responsibility, of this is a black family, and feeling an authenticity there, and specificity and nuance, and it started with Kel, and it grew out from there, and it grew out from these incredible actors. That's what it is.
You said that this was kind of based on your life and around some of your friends. How important was it for you to show that from a black perspective?
Extremely, because it happened very organically. It happened because Kel and I love each other and we wanted to make something together, but we felt when Kel wanted to play Ty, we felt like a significant amount of responsibility there, because if we portrayed his trajectory in the wrong way, I think it'd be a disservice, And we always talked about if you get to the end of Ty's journey or in the movie in general and ever feel if you lose his humanity in that way, like we failed. It's an utter failure. So it started with him, and it started with that collaboration, and a lot of it, we talked about his family, we talked about his relationship with his father, and it was really kind of finding a commonality because it really started from that personal place, but it was like, how can we make that personal place go obviously bigger and outside myself and work for the nuance of a black family and for Kel and his experience that he's felt. So it really started from there, and it stemmed out and grew with this incredible cast, if all of that makes sense.
It was tough love. It was hard love. Did you ever experience that? It sounds like you experienced some of that. I know you have. Let's talk about it. Just the relationship, Sterling, the father and son relationship in this story. What did that mean to you, and how it comes across personally, but also from the storyline itself?
Yeah. So I have two sons, 8 and 4, so not quite as old as my children in the film. But, when you do have these young black boys, you have to work extra hard not to make decisions based in fear, right? Like you have fears, you have these concerns, want to see them return home safely. But you gotta try to take a deep breath and make sure that you don't let fear govern everything that you do, right? And I think that Rollins' way, love is the guiding force, but you're also dealing with a man who lost his first wife to a drug overdose, who had to raise his children on his own for a period of time until he found Catherine, and now they have a family. But he knows how fragile family can be. He's already lost the center, and to lose this boy is something that terrifies him. So we have this desire to arm our children with the knowledge of how they can be perceived in this world, and how people are looking for every excuse to sell them short and to see them as being less than. And we are not afforded that privilege. If we want to be something or make it to a certain place in our lives, we have to be better, right? Like this was how I was raised, and this is how I'm raising my son. I think the shortcoming, the tough love part, what you're talking about, is that at no point in time did his son feel as if he could express his own authenticity and how he felt in the midst of these circumstances. Because if he did, maybe it could have been just as easy as, Dad, I think my shoulders really hurt, right? Like, Dad, I don't want you to be upset with me, but, Alexis is pregnant, right? Without the fear of boy, what did you do? You done effed up this whole thing. You have the right as a parent to be disappointed or whatever, but the children should always know that regardless of what they do, they are going to be loved, right? Like, it's not a matter of like how you are in the world. I'm gonna love you regardless. And so what I enjoy about the movie, if enjoy is the right word for the character, is that there's learning that takes place. Recognizing that the way that he was with his son may not be the only way and or the best way to be. And that if I want my children to share with me, you know, I gotta be the change that I wanna see in the world, and I gotta share with them. And there's this really beautiful two-way helping that happens between him and his daughter, which I think was, I'm glad that Ronald didn't end up in the same place where he started. And, you know, I've had these conversations, and my dad wasn't this dad, but I had different people in my family who have a military background who felt like it was their way or the highway, and you just sort of like listened and did the best that you knew how to. And as a parent, I try to make sure, even with this 8-year-old and this 4-year-old, that they know they can say anything. And it starts now. Like, you can't just hope like magically at 16 they'll be like, hey, so what's going on? Like, oh, I'm having sex and taking pills. It's cool. You gotta start fostering that relationship with them now. So it was sort of a cautionary tale for me, because I have hardness in me, I have softness in me, and it just makes me mindful of what aspects of self am I sharing with my children, because they're going to emulate what you set as an example.
Taylor, talk a little bit about how, you know, what you went through as that character developed and the switch, because in the first half, you know, you were there but not really prevalent, but then it really shifted quickly where you had to take the center stage. Talk a little bit about that growth during the story.
Within the story, what was really useful to the character development was that because we filmed things kind of out of order and all over the place, and I don't have that many scenes with the family, I did feel isolated in ways that I think Emily felt. And I was wondering, like, what are they doing in these scenes together, and what are they talking about? And I just felt like I was missing out on a lot, which I was. And then when even watching the film, there's so much that I didn't see, which I feel like is something that Emily would feel like there's so much that she doesn't know. So that was really useful, actually. It was really helpful to the second half for me not to be as present. Just, you know, she's kind of like the lost child in the family, or that kind of archetype that, on one hand, like, your parents think, I don't have to pay as much attention to this child because she's going to be okay, but because of that, you kind of fall into the shadows a little bit, and kind of have to do it on your own, and it's like a blessing and a curse, because you're not seen, but you have the opportunity to see yourself, I guess, and that's an interesting challenge, I think, when you're a teenager, and so it was really important for me to, I don't know, what I really love right now about certain characters that I get to play, especially with Emily and what Trey wrote, taking from his relationship with his girlfriend, which is so amazing, is that I love these girls who are strong, but their strength is really quiet. Like, I see so many girls like that in my life. Growing up, it's not like I'm so strong and I don't have any feelings, or you can't like penetrate that barrier. And with her, she doesn't need to be like loud or anything. She can kind of be in the background, but so self-assured in many ways, but still like messy and figuring it out. So I really liked all that, and I just wanted to make sure that I kept it quiet, and that I was really listening, because I think like listening is a huge power tool that you have as a human being, and you don't utilize as often as maybe you should. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've learned so much. I think we were talking earlier about dads and our fathers, and I was thinking a lot about my dad, and we talked a lot about my dad with this movie. And he was a dude that grew up in New Orleans who, you know, his his dad, he was like one of the first black dudes that owned like a cab company in New Orleans, but he was like, I'm not bringing you to school. He was like, you're gonna walk. So he was like, he was 12 years old, he was like, I have my saxophone, I'm going from Toulouse Street to da-da-da Street, and da-da-da-da, and I'm just walking around. My dad owned a cab company. He was like, but I had it different. And so at a certain point, once my dad started sharing these stories with me, I was like, oh, this explains so much about why you are the way you are, why you're so hard on me, why you didn't know how to express yourself the best way possible. And then I was like, oh, my dad is just, he's someone's son. He's like, I'm someone's son, he's someone's son. And I kept putting him on this pedestal as if he's just an adult. I mysticized him in a lot of ways. And I think as I grew older, it was about communication. It was about opening myself up to him and giving him the opportunity, much like, Emily does to Ronald. It's just like having these conversations and breaking these walls and these fears that we have with our parents and in these generations to kind of bring us together because we're all in the same boat. And now once we get in the same, not level, because we definitely not understand. My daddy would be like, boy, you're child. It's different, but, just realize and understand each other. And I don't know if that was the answer to that question, but that's how I'm exploring it now at my new age.
You guys get to the lake, and you're now with Ronald. It really, for me, that was an incredibly powerful scene. Again, being a father of two girls, and seeing you break open, but then also the tenderness in your father and basically being able to come together and begin to almost kind of heal each other in that moment. How emotional of a scene was that? It felt very, very heavy.
Well, it was emotional, I guess, when we were filming it. I don't know, thinking back on it now, it didn't feel that big for some reason. It felt really good to be honest as her at a moment where we were kind of like sitting in the mud together, I guess, and could witness each other. And what I heard in what you said, and kind of had a realization of, is with all of these characters, you get to see them ageless almost. You get to just see them as like human beings. When we're there, it's like we're just two people who, of course we're father and daughter, but that dynamic isn't like we're not sitting in our positions of I'm supposed to treat you this way and I'm supposed to act this way. It's like, let me hold your hand and just be a companion to you right now, because we're having this experience. And what's so important about communication, what you see is that I don't believe that Emily showed up that day wanting to, expecting to say what she said, and the impetus for that healing was him saying his piece to her. And so, I don't know, also on an actor level, like working with Sterling is just a gift. I mean, it's a gift to work with him, and you don't get scene partners like that often, where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm a huge fan of you, and I want to make you proud, and I also just like hope I can bring something to the table that you're bringing. I don't know, right?
It was one of those things where, like Taylor was saying, we're two of the only people who know what it's like to be in our shoes, to be experiencing the particular tragedy that we're having. And it's like, you could have shared it with Luke, and I tried to talk to Catherine about it, but like we hadn't checked in with each other, and it was almost out of necessity. And necessity can be the mother of invention, when you just find yourself like, I don't have anybody else to talk to, and I know it's gotta be hard for you, because I know what's going on inside of me. And I may not know the specifics, but I think like now's the time, if there's ever gonna be a time for either of us to move forward, it's like I gotta put it out here, you know what I mean? And it was a weird weekend for me, because I went in one weekend, I was like, Tyler sort of like, he grabbed the keys to the car, he's cursing out his mama, he knocks me to the floor, I hate you, and then like the next day was the scene with Taylor where we were just like sharing everything with each other.
And it was sort of surreal and beautiful and lovely. And what I love about both of these actors is that they were given these beautiful characters, these incredibly complicated characters, and I knew in watching their preparation that they weren't going to squander this opportunity. And I was flying back and forth from LA. I would shoot This Is Us during the week, and I would shoot Waves during the weekend. And I would just pop back and forth, back and forth. I was like, oh, I'm tired. I don't know if I can do this. But then you look into these young folks' eyes and you're like, I have no other choice but to be present. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
My last question, and I don't know if it's spoiler alert or not, but can you talk about the correlation of the father of the son and how it tied in with the family that was being showcased?
Yes, it's just the father-son dynamic and tied in with the whole family.
The father that was that passed away.
Oh, at the end. Right. Yes,
so how did that correlation come in part with the family dynamic of that family that was displayed in the movie?
It basically, for me, what I think is like grief works in funny ways, and I think what's important about that is what it's doing to Emily on her side of her grief, if that makes sense, and what that's bringing out, because I guess it is hard to talk about without spoiling. It's the first time she's been around something like that since a pivotal event earlier, and I think that's bringing out a lot of big things in her, you know, and it's bringing out feelings of her regret and relationship with her brother and forgiveness. And so for me, it's really everything that it's activating inside her head, and then kind of how she applies that to her family, you know what I mean? And what that leads to, I don't want to spoil things, but kind of that text message and where that bond. There's other things between just the fact of like her kind of not telling her parents the full truth and leaving town, and the alert mode that brings her parents in, and what dynamic she's already in that family. So her doing that, what that would cause with those parents, and then what it does to her internally and how that all links up. It's hard to talk about without spoiling.
We're not going to tell it all. It's in theaters November 15th. It's Waves. It's Tyler Schultz.
Trey Schultz.
See, I'm saying Tyler.
No, but this happens all the time.
I got it all. Trey Schultz. So go ahead. Tell everybody to watch it. Tell them why they should watch it.
Please watch it. I hope it's a very human movie, empathetic movie, and I hope you go on a journey. It's coming out November 15th and then expanding from there. So please check it out.
Now, I gave you the experience. It doesn't get any better than this. Tallboy Experience, man. We're out. Did you like the video? That's right. Did you like it? Hit that like button, subscribe, and share it.
Think big, think tall, think tall boy.
Yeah! Tall boy. The Tall Boy Experience.